back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Maria and today's video is going to be the mid-year book tag. So I've seen so many people do this tag. I think the first one that I watched was Katie Witruks, and I have actually taken some of her questions as well because there's a set list of questions, but she added a few of her own. So I've taken some of hers as well because I thought they were pretty good. I've also watched Sarah Caroli, Ravenheart Reader, Destiny Sidwell. Anyone that's kind of posted a mid-year book tag, I've probably watched it. So yeah, I thought I'd do my own now that we're kind of a bit later into June. I didn't want to do it too early in June because I kind of think I wanted to get most of my June reads in before I done the mid-year book tag, but now that we're kind of near the end, I'm just going to give it a go, give you some of my answers and go through the reads that I've had for the first half of the year. I'd say overall it's been a bit of a mixed bag in terms of ratings. I do think this year I've been a little bit more critical than I have been in previous years in terms of star ratings and things like that, and not because I'm trying to be harsh, it's just I am very much a vibes person and I can end up giving kind of everything 5 stars, so I'm trying to be a little bit more critical and observant when I'm giving ratings and when I'm recommending books, just to make sure that I'm not just recommending it because I was vibing with it and trying to understand what it was about the book that I actually enjoyed and seeing if that helps me then pick my future reads as well. So yeah, I think without further ado we'll just get into probably the stats of the reading year so far, then get into the questions. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get started. Okay, so in terms of stats, my reading goal for the year was to read 100 books. So I think last year I read around 140 or something like that. But the reason that I set my goal at 100 rather than kind of elevating it up to that higher level was because I didn't want to put too much pressure on myself. You know, primarily for me, reading is for fun. It is a hobby. It's not something I do for a job or anything. So I just wanted to keep it at that lower level so that it's achievable. I'll see maybe where I am in around August time, September time, and see if I want to increase it a little bit just to give myself a bit of a challenge, but so far I'm happy with that 100 mark. So far in 2024 I've read 68 books and I've actually just finished one today, so that's going to be 69 books. Most of the books that I've read have been medium paced, so 1 or 2 of them have been fast and a couple have been slow as well, but for the most part the type of books that I'm reading are medium paced. They have been for the most part between 300 and 500 pages. There's a few there that are a bit longer and not very many that are below 300. I don't tend to read a lot of short books. They've all been fiction and unsurprisingly my main genres are fantasy, romance, young adult, contemporary literature, and then there's a few other down there as well. And basically if you don't already have this, I actually use Storyograph to record all of my readings and all of my stats, and I really love that Storyograph does give you kind of the statistics of kind of the moods that you've been reading and the pace, and then as I say the genres and stuff like that you're reading, and then you can actually click through and see which books attributed to those stats. So I still use Goodreads. I do go on there if I'm looking for reviews generally, but when it comes to kind of my logging of the books that I'm reading and wanting to get the stats and things like that, I just think Storyograph's great. So yeah, just if you don't use it already, it's worth checking out. So the first question in the tag is the best book you've read so far in 2024. And honestly, it was really hard to kind of pick one for this one, so I will give a few honourable mentions, but the one that I think I'm going to go for is kind of a joint one with this one. So this is the sequel to the first book, Empire of the Vampire. This is Empire of the Damned. I read both of these this year, and honestly this series is just going to be one of those all-time favourites. It's one that I didn't actually think I was going to enjoy as much as I did. It's a bit more of a high fantasy, you know, there's minimal romance in there, but I think for me the main thing was just being able to be immersed in this epic kind of fantasy story. And with Jay Kristoff, who writes this, he is the type of author who is able to deal with really dark topics and really kind of dark plot lines, but also make it completely humorous the whole way through. You know, most of the characters are, you know, they are very sarcastic, or, you know, there's always banter going on. So that's one of the things I really loved about this, even though it is tackling some really dark topics and really dark storylines. There's a lot of banter and a lot of humor in here as well to kind of keep you elevated and keep you motivated to keep reading. So yeah, I'd say this is my favourite book so far in 2024. So if you don't know what Empire of the Vampire the series is about, basically it follows our main protagonist, Gabriel de Leon, where we start off the story where he's been captured and he's basically speaking to his captor about kind of his story and how he got there. So it's similar to, I think the inspiration came from Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. So that's very much kind of the mechanism that's used to tell this story, where it's almost like an interview with a vampire for want of a better term, and he is kind of telling us exactly what happened, but it doesn't feel too much like that. It doesn't feel too much like we're getting told rather than shown. It does kind of go into the narrative, and then you'll kind of be brought back from the narrative to present day where Gabriel is giving his story. But basically it follows Gabriel de Leon. He is a young boy, and basically when he is young a vampire comes to his town and, you know, causes chaos, and he ends up getting taken by an order called the Silver Saints because they see that he has some sort of affinity with them. So he's basically a half-blood, as they would call it, and he does have have some vampire blood within him. Now the Silver Saints are basically a ministry who are set up to ward against the evil in the world and kind of the evil monsters and evil vampires. They all do have some sort of affiliation with vampires, so they may be a half-blood or something like that, but basically their job is to protect the world from those creatures and kind of push back on those kind of instincts that they may have with their powers and things like that. But yeah, so he gets brought into the Silver Saints, and he kind of, when he goes there, it's almost like a, if you want to compare it to something in our world, it's almost like a religious kind of cult almost. But he kind of, as he goes along, he kind of learns secrets about this society and about this group of people that maybe everything that he thought he knew isn't quite as it was meant to be. And yeah, the story kind of goes from there. I think this one's a really good one to go in with minimal information in terms of the plot and how it goes. But yeah, all I can say is I definitely recommend this one. If you're intimidated by it being kind of higher fantasy or anything like that, definitely don't be. If I was able to kind of follow the story along, then anybody can. It was one of the first really high fantasies I think I probably read, so yeah, definitely recommend this one. It's full of humour, full of great banter, the writing's amazing, the storytelling's amazing. In terms of world building and things like that, I definitely just think it's probably second to none. I'm also at the minute reading his Nevernight series, and again, the world building is so immersive. His books are the types of stories that you just don't want to put down. You can't wait to see what's going to happen, and you want to keep reading so that you can find out. But yeah, as I say, best book so far of 2024. I think out of the few that I was picking, I would have to go with this one. As I say, I do have a few honourable mentions, and these are basically just some of the 5 stars that I've had in the year so far. I'm not going to go into the synopsis of them because we'll be here all day, but basically the first one would be The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I do have a vlog where I kind of read this and gave you all my thoughts and feelings as I was reading it, but yeah, definitely this one's 5-star. Definitely look up trigger warnings if you are going to pick it up, because there's quite intense kind of graphic scenes in here. But yeah, if you're looking for a bit more, again, of a high fantasy, a bit more war and battle centric and with a bit of folklore and a little pinch of fantasy in there, definitely recommend this one. The next one is a contemporary romance, so Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This was my first book by these authors, so I wasn't too sure what to expect jumping into it, but this one was just friends to lovers, you know, childhood friend to lovers. Got me in all the feels, you know. I definitely shed a tear or two with this one, which you'll see later. But yeah, this is another one I would highly recommend. Then the next one, which was an unexpected one, is Happy Place by Emily Henry. So I've read a few Emily Henry before, did really enjoy them, but this is the one for me. This is the one that made me feel all of the feels. This is the one that kind of cemented her writing style for me, and yeah, absolutely 5 stars for this one as well. And then I can't recommend all of the rest of those without mentioning this book, which I read earlier in the year, which is The Starless Sea, and it's by Erin Morgenstern. And this one is for anyone who enjoys books about books, books about kind of magical realism, alternate universes that are kind of mirroring our own mystery, intrigue. It's a bit of a fever dream reading it. The whole way through it, you're not really sure what's happening. There's stories in here that kind of connect to real world stories, and yeah, this one was amazing. If you like kind of flowery writing or purple prose, you'll really love this one. And speaking of purple prose, another one that I just want to throw in because it didn't actually fit into any of the other categories is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. Again, this is just really beautiful writing. Quite unique for a fantasy romance. I think there was quite a lot of world building in here. It was quite an interesting and unique world building as well. But just the last one of those honourable mentions, the best books I've read this year so far. So now that question's out of the way, and I promise I'm not going to pick like 6 books for every single question. I just had to mention some of those because they were some really amazing reads. But the next question is the best sequel you've read so far in 2024. And I thought for this one I would take the opportunity to highlight a series that I've really loved. So the sequel is Heat of the Everflame by Penn Cole, and this is part of the Kindred's Curse saga. So the first book in this series is Spark of the Everflame, and then we have Glow of the Everflame, and then the third book is Heat of the Everflame, and the last one will be Burn of the Everflame, and it's due out later this year. But yeah, this series took me completely by surprise. So as I say, it's by Penn Cole. She is an indie author, and I'd seen a lot of buzz around BookTube and things like that about this series, saying that it was, you know, a really unique romantasy. It was kind of giving ACOTAR vibes, and to be honest, anytime I hear this gives you ACOTAR vibes, it usually actually puts me off. But I thought I'll give this a go. It can't be that bad. Everyone's kind of raving about it. Let's see what it's all about. And as soon as I read Spark of the Everflame, I was hooked. I basically binged these books within a couple of weeks, and this one's pretty chunky. You know, the other ones are a little bit shorter, but they're not short books, so to say that I kind of binged them within a couple of weeks is actually quite a feat. But yeah, just to give you a bit of a synopsis from the first book. Obviously this is the third book in the series, so I can't really tell you what this one was about, but the first book is following our main protagonist, DM. She lives in a world that's kind of ruled by what are called the Descendants, and they're descendants of the kind of gods of old, and they're basically akin to what we would know as fae. And in years past, basically, the humans and the descendants haven't got along. The descendants kind of look down on humans, they treat them very badly. Humans are kind of living in squalor while the descendants are living kind of in riches and wealth and basically have everything they could need. So the book starts off where DM's mother, who was actually a healer for the descendants, is missing, and she's been missing for around 6 months, and DM basically decides that she wants to try and find her. She wants to try and work out what's happened. So in order to do that, she decides to join the healers for the royals, so the descendant royals, to see if she can figure out from there what happened to her mother, where is she gone. Now when she's there, she meets Luther, who is the prince basically within the descendants realm. The story kind of goes from there. Within this one, there's also rebellion going on. So we have the humans who are trying to rebel against the descendants, and yeah, there's a lot of political intrigue in here. It's a really, 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 really slow burn. This is book 3. This is probably when the romance really hits. So just fair warning for anyone who doesn't like slow burn and prefers a bit of insta love, this may not be the one for you, but for anyone that kind of likes that angst build up, the yearning, the kind of will they, won't they, this is the series for you. So yeah, best sequel so far this year is probably Heat of the Everflame by Penn Cole. So the third question is no releases that you haven't read yet, but you want to. So the first one is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Now the reason I haven't read this is because I haven't read the first 2 books that are kind of within that interconnected standalone series. And that is Part of Your World and Yours Truly. So people say you don't really need to read them in order, but for me, I'm a bit of a traditionalist. If there's books that are supposed to come before other books, I want to read them in order that they were, you know, supposed to be read. So I want to read those before I try and read Just for the Summer, because I just think it would make it more entertaining, and I just love whenever you get some Easter eggs in like later books of books that you've read before. And then the next 2 are because I'm a little bit apprehensive that I'm not going to enjoy them. So the first one is The Atlas Complex by Olivia Blake. Now Olivia Blake is one of my absolute favourite authors. I basically have loved every book that I've read from her, but The Atlas Complex came out in January and it has the absolute worst reviews. I think on Goodreads it's like 2.9. I don't think I've ever seen a book with reviews that are 2.9, and I don't know if it's just a case of there haven't been many people who have read it, or it's a really bad book. So I'm just really, really concerned that I'm going to read it and it's going to suddenly knock off my perfect score for my Olivia Blake fandom. But yeah, I've been kind of putting that off because I'm a bit apprehensive. I just don't want to read it and hate it, but you know, I might read it and love it. So I'm really going to try and get to it soon, because I did do a reread of the first 2 books earlier in the year in preparation of reading this one. So before I kind of forget all those details again, I want to read that 3rd one just to see what I think. And then the next one is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. So again, similarly, I'm just concerned I'm not going to like it. I've really enjoyed Ali Hazelwood's books up until now. So I've read The Love Hypothesis as well as Love Theoretically. Really enjoyed both of those. I still need to read Love on the Brain and Check and Mate. I haven't read those yet. But yeah, I'm just concerned with some of the things I've heard about Bride. I'm not sure I'm going to love it. I'm not sure it's going to be for me. But at the same time, I really loved Ali Hazelwood before, so maybe I should just read it and see. But yeah, those are 2 that I'm just a little bit apprehensive about, so I haven't read them. But hopefully I will get to them soon. Okay, so the next question is my most anticipated releases for the rest of the year, and honestly there's about a million I could probably say, but the first one I'm going to say is Goldfinch, and it's the last book in the Plated Prisoner series by Raven Kennedy, and that series is one of my absolute favourites. I just read Gold earlier this year, or was it the end of last year? Could have been the end of last year. I read Gold previously and it came out. I reread kind of the whole series in preparation for Gold, and now we have Goldfinch coming later this year as well. So I cannot wait to read this conclusion. The way that the last book ended was on such a cliffhanger, kind of tilted the whole world on its axis with this series, and I kind of feel like every book that I've read from her has done that within the series. So yeah, really excited to see where the series is going to conclude and how everything's going to be resolved, but that's probably my top most anticipated. And the next one I'm really highly anticipating, and I'm honestly getting giddy even thinking about it, is Air by Sabaa Tahir, and that is a companion series to her An Ember in the Ashes series, which again is one of my absolute favourites, and it's severely underrated. If you have not read An Ember in the Ashes, please read it. And Air comes out in October, so around August, September time would be a great time to binge that series in preparation for Air coming out. And this follows, I believe, the nephew of one of the characters from An Ember in the Ashes. And yeah, I just cannot wait to get into a new book by Sabaa Tahir. And also it gives me an excuse to reread An Ember in the Ashes. So yeah, really highly anticipating that one. So the next question is the biggest surprise. And honestly, it's still a surprise that this is going to be one of my answers for kind of the biggest surprise. But It was the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver, and the reason it was the biggest surprise is because I honestly just didn't think this was going to be for me. I'm not a huge contemporary romance reader. I do enjoy them now and again, but I usually just sprinkle them in here and there. They're not kind of my main reads or anything like that. So I kind of picked the first one up on a whim. It was on Kindle Unlimited. I thought I'd give it a try. You know, everyone was getting into their cowboy era. I was getting a bit of FOMO, so I decided to read it. I read all of these within a week. I just couldn't put them down. They were so entertaining, really fast paced, really fun reads, and honestly I'm so glad that I picked them up on a whim. And I'd say my favourite from the series are Heartless and Reckless. Those two are definitely favourites for me. I didn't love the last one, but it was still entertaining enough. But I just think the trope in there is age gap. It was quite a significant age gap, and something about it just wasn't hitting for me. But the rest of them absolutely were, you know, really good reads, really fast reads. I really want to read kind of the prequel. Well, it's not a prequel series. It was out before this series, and I think it follows kind of the sister of some of the characters in here as well. So, and her group of friends. But yeah, so I'm really excited to read more from Elsie Silver. I think she has the perfect kind of combination of romance in there, a bit of fun, a bit of banter. You know, the banter wasn't too cringy or anything. There was enough plot to keep me entertained as well. So yeah, biggest surprise was this because I absolutely loved it. So the next question is what the biggest disappointment has been so far, and unfortunately it was this one from Victoria Aveyard, and it's Realm Breaker. And basically I've just been really excited about this one because I'd heard Victoria Aveyard is basically, you know, well established within the fantasy world. I've heard a lot about her Red Queen series, but I decided to start with this series because it's a bit more high fantasy from what I'd heard, and I'd heard that it was multi-POV, so I thought it would be really good. But with this one I just felt it was quite a slow pace. It was probably a lot slower than I was used to. Also think that the multi-POV, there was around 6 POVs that we followed in here, actually hindered it because it felt like I didn't get to kind of connect with any of the characters who were in here. So even though I do love a multi-POV, I think just the amount of POVs in here and kind of the sporadicness of us reading from their POV kind of hindered my enjoyment of this one a little bit. So I was a little bit upset about that, and because I was really looking forward to this series, and I've yet to pick up the next book in the series because of that. But I do want to try and read it before I forget all of the details in this one, because there is quite a lot of politics and things like that. But this one, if you don't know, is about basically a girl who unknowingly is kind of the last person in a long lineage of kind of these powerful beings, these immortals. And essentially when her father is killed, she didn't know her father, but when her father is killed, his companion comes to kind of find her as they need her to overcome this darkness that's coming to the land. And within that journey, they kind of come across all these different characters along the way who kind of bring together the different worlds and perspectives within this realm. So like there's a queen and things like that. And yeah, as I say, there was quite a few different multi-POVs in here. And while I thought the story was quite intriguing and I was really interested in where it was going, I just felt like it was too dense at some parts and the writing style maybe wasn't for me. But I've heard that the second book does get a little bit better. I think there's a lot of setup in this book, so maybe that's why it didn't quite hit for me. But I still landed at around a 3 to 3.5 for this one. I don't think it was bad writing or anything, but it was just a little bit more dense and slow paced than I maybe used to, or that I maybe enjoy normally. So yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with this one. So the next question is newest favourite author, and I've already mentioned them before, so I won't go too deep into it, but I definitely say Jay Kristoff is up there for me. I'm kind of reading his backlog now, so I will be finishing the Nevernight series probably pretty soon. I've read the first 2 books, so I just have the third one to read, and I've read the first 2 that are out at the moment in the Empire of the Vampire series. So his writing has just captivated me. I can't wait to read kind of the next books that he comes out with, and he's basically an auto-buy author for me as well. Similarly with Erin Morgenstern, I just think with her writing and her writing style, I really think I'm going to enjoy everything that I read from this author. Now, admittedly, I've only read this one book, so it could be kind of a one-hit wonder, but I'm really intrigued by this writing style, and it just really resonates with me for some reason. I really love purple prose. I really love kind of more whimsical stories, and that's exactly what this was. So I'm really excited to read more from her, but if I did have to kind of give an honourable mention to an author that I've discovered this year, it would probably be her. So the next question is newest fictional crush, and honestly, I was kind of coming up blank when I was thinking about this. I'm very loyal when I have a fictional crush. I usually have I say I'm very loyal and I'm about to list 5 different book boyfriends, but I'm loyal to those 5. So Cassian is probably always going to be my number 1 from the Akatar series. Then I like Slade from the Plated Prisoner series. I also like Castile from Blood and Ash. We have Laszlo Strange from the Strange the Dreamer series. And then Dorian from Throne of Glass. And honestly, it's very hard to kind of compete with them. It's very hard to kind of come to their level and get on that official list. But I'd say probably if I had to pick, it would probably be a few from the Chestnut Springs series who I just really connected with, really enjoyed their personalities, and I kind of think in real life, if I was to meet someone like that, they're the type of people I would vibe with. And that was Kate from Heartless and Theo from Reckless. Kate was kind of the grumpy to Willa's sunshine within that book, and I don't know, he just seemed like he was really, once he opened up and once he kind of connected with Willa, I just really enjoyed his personality for some reason. And then Theo was just that type of book boyfriend who is kind of acts of service, words of affirmation, all the type of things I like. So yeah, they're probably the two now that are on my fictional crush list. So the next question is a book that made you cry, and I'm going to be open and upfront and say I very rarely cry at books. I don't know if I have a heart of stone. I mean, inside I'll be dying, but when you look at me and I'm reading, I'll just be like, no emotion, zero emotion, there'll be nothing there. But one of the books that really made me feel was Love in Other Words, and this is a book that I read basically in a day, and I do have a vlog again of going through reading this and kind of my thoughts and feelings throughout, but I don't know what it was. I just really connected with the characters in this, and I could really feel kind of their turmoil and their pain, and the whole way through I just felt so bad for them. I just felt like I wanted to give them a hug. I just really wanted to kind of comfort them, and yeah, it just got me in all the feels and really got me close to that point of crying. It didn't quite get me there. As I say, I'm not really a big crier when I'm reading. I wish I was. I wish I would just let, you know, I kind of keep all the emotions inside. Maybe that's the problem. But yeah, basically this one was probably the one that I would say brought me closest to tears. I was really feeling the emotions within this one, and yeah, so if you're a crier at books, you're probably going to cry at this one. Next question is a book that made you happy, and this might be an unpopular opinion or a controversial opinion, but I would pick The House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J Maas. And is it necessarily for the plot? Is it necessarily for the way it was written? Is it necessarily for the things that happened in it? No. But I was so happy reading this book because I was finally into a new Sarah J Maas book. Most of the books that I've read from her were kind of just out, or the whole series had been done already, so I was able to kind of just binge the series along. With this one, obviously the anticipation, the wait for it, and just all that build up. I mean, I did really enjoy this. I gave it a 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. Did it necessarily hit all the points that I would have liked it to? No. But whenever I kind of took away all of the hysteria around what people thought were going to happen in this one, and thought about it the way that I kind of analysed some of her other books, I still really enjoyed it, and I was just so happy to be back in this world, so happy to see certain characters that we haven't seen anything new from. If you know, you know. But yeah, I was just really happy to read this one. I read it again, I think I read this within like a day and a half, and this is a pretty chunky book, but I basically, as soon as it was out, I got it on Kindle, got it on Audible as well, so that I could just kind of listen and read with no matter what I was doing, and took the day off to read it as well, may I add. So call me crazy, but it just made me so happy, not necessarily because of the contents that are inside here, but just being in this world and being in this writer's world again with a new book. I couldn't have been happier. So the next question is the most beautiful book that you've bought or been gifted, and as you can probably tell from the shelves beside me, I do enjoy a special edition. I'm, you know, subscribed to Fairy Loot and Illuma Crate as well, and I just love having beautiful books. So it's very hard for me to kind of decide which one's the most beautiful, because most of them are kind of beautiful for different reasons and in different ways. But if I had to choose, this recent purchase that I got of the Hunger Games would probably be one of the most beautiful sets I think I've ever bought. Just the colours and the art on here, and even the box. I mean, I usually don't keep the boxes of these kind of special editions, but there is no way I'm getting rid of that box. It's absolutely stunning. And yeah, I just, as soon as I seen these kind of restock, because they were out last year and then they restocked a couple of weeks ago, and as soon as I seen them restock, I just knew I had to get a set. So I'll show you the first one and kind of the cover on it. And yeah, I mean, the ring light's kind of distorting it a little bit, but you can see there's kind of foiling on the leaves there, and the details are just absolutely stunning. Then kind of as you go through, there's artwork on some of the kind of book endings and things like that, and yeah, these are just absolutely stunning. They're a bit different than I would normally choose. Most of my books are kind of dark and moody because they're fantasy, and I'm not really sure that these designs kind of fit in with the aesthetics of the series that much, but they're honestly just so pretty. I just knew I had to get them. So yeah, I'd say they're probably the prettiest books that I've bought this year. So the next question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And I actually had a priority TBR for the start of the year, and I put it in my reading journal, kind of the books I wanted to get to by the end of this year. So looking at this, I think I've actually done pretty well on this first page. These have all been read. The only one that I haven't read is Uprooted by Naomi Novik, and it is on my TBR cart, so hopefully I'll be getting to that one soon. And then on this page, I've read a little bit less. I've only read 2 out of the 8 that are on here, so I do still need to read Beauty of Darkness. It's actually on my July TBR. And then I need to read the Cassandra Clare series, Defy the Night, For the Wolf, and The Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard as well. So those are the books that I need to get to by the end of the year to kind of meet my priority TBR. So yeah, hoping I'll get to them in the next few months. The next question is, what books do you want to reread this year? And I think I did mention An Ember in the Ashes. I think I'm going to read that whole series in preparation for Air coming out in October. Another one I do want to try and read again is The Invisible Life of Addie the Roo. I might try and read that and annotate it as well. And then I'd love to read Jane Eyre again. So it's been years since I've read Jane Eyre. I think last time I read it, I was probably about 18. And I would just love to read that book again. It's one that's always really stuck with me. And I think around autumn or winter time is probably going to be a great time to read that one. So yeah, I'd probably say An Ember in the Ashes series, The Invisible Life of Addie the Roo, and then Jane Eyre. And if I can squeeze it in, I would like to read Strange the Dreamer again, but we'll see. We'll see if I can squeeze it in. So the next question is books you've been putting off, and a series that I have been putting off over the last few years is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, and I've got all of the books within that kind of world, so the Foul Lady Fortune and all of that. I've got all of the books and I've just been putting them off for absolutely no reason really. I do think I'm going to enjoy it. From what I've heard, it's one that I'm probably going to enjoy. One of the reasons I'm kind of putting it off is it is urban fantasy, and that's not always my favorite. It definitely depends on the author, on whether I'm going to enjoy it or not. And yeah, I think that's the reason that I probably am mentally putting it off. But I definitely want to read at least the first duology in this series this year. So hopefully I think around the autumn time I may pick these ones up, and then we'll see. If it's really good and I really enjoy it, I may end up binging all of the kind of companion series as well. But yeah, this is one I've been putting off for quite some time, and I really want to try and get to it this year. So the next question is a book you enjoyed with mixed reviews, and honestly I would have to say Binding 13. Now, I didn't give this a 5-star or anything. It's set at around a 3.5 star for me, but I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. And I think that's kind of testament to not read reviews before you go into books, because you will get a lot of preconceptions and things like that. But I'd read a lot of reviews saying that this was really terrible, to be quite honest. I'd seen a lot of people saying that it was one of the worst books that they'd read. It definitely wasn't worth the hype and that type of thing. So I was really cautious going into it, but I thought, it's an Irish writer. I want to try and support more Irish authors. Maybe I'll identify with it a little bit more, and I definitely think I did. I definitely think that I identified with some of the things that she was talking about, kind of experiences of young people in Ireland. The writing style wasn't a favourite for me. I think it was quite plain and simplistic, and as I say, I'm a real big fan of kind of purple prose, but I think that's just more of a personal preference thing. But in terms of the storyline and in terms of the entertainment levels and the enjoyment of it, I did really enjoy this one. Now, this one I would say definitely check out trigger warnings, because there's quite a few uncomfortable topics in here pertaining to kind of domestic violence, so definitely just check that out before you pick this one up. And it's definitely not, just a love story. There's quite a lot going on in there as well. But yeah, definitely enjoyed this one a lot more than I thought I would. As I say, I seen quite mixed reviews, saw quite negative reviews actually on it as well, so was pleasantly surprised that I enjoyed it as much as I did. So the next question is a series you want to finish before the end of the year, and this is actually a series I want to start and finish by the end of the year, and that's The Remnant Chronicles by Mary E. Pearson. So the first book is Kiss of Deception, which I think I mentioned, but it's in my July TBR, so I've picked it to read this month, and I'm really excited to get to this one. It's one that's been on my radar for a long time. It's basically about a girl who is a princess. On her wedding day, she runs away, so she ends up being a runaway bride. Along the road, she meets 2 men who, one is the prince she was supposed to marry, and one is an assassin who was sent to kill her. We, as the readers, I believe, don't know which is which, and she doesn't know their identities either, but I believe there will be a bit of a love triangle in here, and I've heard it's just a really good time, and I've heard that the second and the third book are really good in this series, so I'm really excited to pick this one up. And these are the fairy editions, so yes, I have a problem. I buy special editions before I've read series, but I couldn't help it. They were absolutely stunning with the foiling, and then kind of the 3 books align up and they kind of come into this map. Then we have some, I believe it's recommendations. Sorry, no, it's a quote, some quotes from the book. And then when you go inside as well, you can just see some absolutely stunning fan art as well. Guessing this is our main girl and the 2 that she is going to be entangled with. And then the naked hardcover is beautiful as well. But yeah, I think this just sounds like it's YA, I believe, and I think it just kind of sounds like that classic kind of maybe around 2015 YA love story, and to be honest, I still really enjoy those. They're some of my favorite books, so I'm really excited to read this one, and yeah, hoping I really enjoy it. Next question is my 5-star predictions for the rest of the year. And again, there was quite a few that I could put on here, but I think mainly it will probably be Goldfinch by Raven Kennedy. I just think I'm going to absolutely love that conclusion. At least I'm hoping that I'm going to love that conclusion. And then Air by Sabathir. Again, her writing just does something to me, so I'm really, really hoping that I love that book as well. But I think another one that I would say I'm anticipating will be 5 stars is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. So again, I really, really enjoyed The Starless Sea, absolutely loved her writing style, and I've heard most people enjoy this even better. Now, I've been told that this one is perfect to read in the fall, or autumn if you're from Ireland, and that's why I've kind of been holding off. I really, really wanted to read it as soon as I finished The Starless Sea, but so many people said just to wait until autumn because it gives you the perfect vibes for this book, so I want to make sure kind of my environment is optimal when I get to this book, and this is the Fairyloot edition as well, and has these beautiful sprayed edges, and yeah, cannot wait to read this one. I think it's going to be an absolute favourite. I'm going to kind of group the next 2 questions together, and these are the last questions. So the first one is, do you think you'll reach your reading goal? So as I say, my reading goal is 100 books. I'm currently sitting at 69, so I think I probably will easily hit that goal. I do read a lot of audiobooks as well, and ever since I've started reading audiobooks, it basically doubles my reading, because when I'm out walking, doing, you know, chores in the house, doing washing, anything like that, I'm able to still be reading without having to kind of sit down and physically read a book. So if you're not an audiobook reader, or if you've never used that medium before reading, definitely check it out. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get used to. Sometimes you have to kind of find a good narrator for you to kind of vibe with the first book that you get, but once you kind of get into the flow of it, narrators and that, unless they're really, really bad, don't tend to kind of hinder my enjoyment of the books that much. So yeah, definitely recommend audiobooks if it's not something that you already do. And then the next part of that question was, do you have any more goals for this year? And I think for me, I really, really, really need to focus on trying to get my physical TBR below the 100 mark, and as crazy as a statement that is, I can't believe I've got myself in a situation where I have over 100 books that I haven't read yet. And I know that, you know, for most people it is kind of a goal to have a home library, and for me it is too. I want to have, you know, a home filled with books that are, you know, beautiful and some of my favourite books, and to be able to kind of pick from those as I can. But at the same time, I do only have a certain amount of space, and I want to kind of make sure that I'm not just buying things to consume essentially. And it's really, really easy for me anyway to kind of fall into that trap of, oh, I want that book, I want to read it, I need to buy it now, and then it'll sit on my shelves for, you know, years and years to come, because I'll either forget about it or it just won't be top of mind when I'm going to pick my next read. So yeah, I really want to focus on getting that physical TBR down. First half of the year, I think for the first few months I was doing really well, kind of fallen off the wagon a little bit, but yeah, definitely going to be trying to be more mindful of next time I'm out book shopping of, is this something I really, really want? This is something that I need to buy now? Is it something I can kind of save until another time? But yeah, the goal is to try and get that physical TBR below 100 at least. I know that, you know, I could aim for more, but just realistically, I know there's new releases and things like that that I'm going to want to read. So if I can get it below 100, I would be pretty happy. And that's it. That's all the questions for the tag. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. I'd love to know if you have any kind of similar or the same answers as me, or kind of if your reading taste is completely different than mine. Definitely let me know some of your favourites below. I will put all of the questions that I answered in the description box, so that if you do want to do this video, or if you want to use this as kind of a reference for anything, you'll have those down below. But if you've made it this far in the video, put a little dagger or the blood symbol for Empire of the Vampire, with it being my favourite book this year. If you like this video, please do remember to give it a like, and if you want to see more from me, remember to subscribe. I'll be posting around 2 videos per week, and it will be all bookish videos like this, so wrap-ups, book hauls, come shopping with me, weekly reading vlogs and things like that. If you do have any suggestions for other videos that you'd like to see from me as well, definitely put them in the comments below, and I'll be sure to kind of review those and hopefully get to some of those as well. Other than that, thanks so much for watching this one. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in my next one soon. Bye!